republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So to start our agenda this evening and presentations, we have the district safety plan.
Okay.
Uh-oh, where'd it go?
Any questions? All right. We are required by law to annually discuss the district safety plan, or present it, I should say, present the district safety plan pursuant to Commissioner's regulations. And this plan also needs to be made public for 30 days for public comment. And then the hopes will be after that public comment period, which will fall between the June 6th and June 20th meeting, that we will adopt the plan on June 20th. So we'll post it in a draft form online after this meeting, and then clock the 30 days going forward. So basically, just a little primer on the district safety plan. It's what I'll share with you tonight is just kind of an overview. It won't get into any specific details. There's building level safety plans that gets into all the nuts and bolts on how we plan for different events or different emergencies or circumstances that may present themselves throughout the course of the day or throughout the course of a year. And we have certain responses for each of those. So that's building specific, which they're all pretty similar. They all may have a few nuances for their own buildings. Those end up getting sent to the state. We have to update those annually to the state. And those are the plans that really kind of guide how we do things every year. Hence, we don't share that publicly. That's the part of the plans that certainly just the need to know people need to know to respond to any emergency. So again, this is just an overview of the district-wide plan. These are some of the things, intervention strategies, dignity act coordinators, handshakes mentoring program, we were able to get back up and running again this year, fire prevention and awareness, positivity project in all 3 buildings, and anyone can save a life. We just started that a couple of years ago. I know Todd Nelson, former board member, had shared that with us, and that's where you have kids, especially in the after-school setting, having a plan in the event of emergency. God forbid it's your club advisor or your coach that becomes incapacitated, that the kids have an understanding of what their role and responsibilities are. So that kind of outlines a plan so the kids and coaches have that on file when they do that. And then certainly as things come up in district meetings, we will certainly have the strategies. Emergency drills, quickly, we're mandated to do 8 fire drills, 4 lockdown drills. Every room should have an emergency response card that speaks to the different strategies that we can put into place depending on the event, whether that's a full lockdown and everybody follows that procedure for lockdown, or lockout, which essentially we're locked out all day long. We have single points of entry, so people are vetted basically to come into the building. So essentially, so a true lockout would just be, okay, you show up, you're at that single point entry, we're not letting you in. That's the one difference between our normal activity and a lockout. Shelter in place, hold in place, and evacuation. And we use those. Hold in place could be, everybody continue doing your business, but do not leave your rooms. We may have an emergency. We may have an ambulance here, and we have to shuttle someone out of a room, out to an ambulance, and we don't want people passing by and having to see that. So, that might be an example of what we do for a hold in place. Annual go home drill, that is just we dismiss early, get kids on the bus, and then they go home. That's required to do. We usually do that the day before Thanksgiving break. Lockdown system, we did get that. Well, we actually updated it, added more. We had it installed over a year ago, 2 years, year and a half, I think. And even this year we found some weak spots in it. Where it wasn't, the sound wasn't reaching, or we thought there should be lights. The lights that we had outside originally were not very good. You almost had to be standing under them to see them blink. So we changed out some lights to get a better visibility of that, so people truly understand as they approach a building, they see that blue light, they should not be approaching and go back to the car, and perhaps even leave campus if possible, but at least stay away from the building. So We're really happy to have that. That's a push button, which activates a phone call to 911, so that stimulates a response. Our doors get automatically locked and disabled. There are a few of us that are still, our card would still work, so that we could certainly assist with any entering of buildings as needed, or to help certainly emergency personnel get into the building. So, but otherwise, in a true lockdown, you should find you can swipe a card, you should not be able to get in the building, even if you generally have access. It should be disabled for that time. Okay, school security. All staff, they're expected to kind of police the building along with the administrators. So if you see, it's basically if you see something, say something. We had a case in point. We kind of laugh now. We actually did a hold in place. We had an emergency here in the high school, and a bag was found outside the school door. And the person didn't make the connection and thought maybe the hold in place had to do with that bag. So, rightfully so, notified the office. Long story short, we investigated it. If someone's lunch was left, it was dropped off for them. They couldn't get in the building. They left it there and let them know, but nobody could go and pick it up because we were in a hold in place. So, we did find it, deemed that it was safe. Thought, oh, we'll do somebody a favor because we didn't know who it was. We'll put it in a refrigerator, and that person claimed their salad for that day. But nonetheless, that kind of awareness you have to have. And that's certainly what we expect from everybody in the building. As I said, single point of entry in our buildings. We have keyless access, so if somebody uses a key fob, we can identify by that fob number and who that number is assigned to. We can identify that. Visitors coming into the building, they come in, state their purpose, put a visitor badge to go on. And the way it should work is if they're in the building, they see a badge, somebody should hopefully recognize it and say, okay, they've been vetted to come into the building. If they don't see a badge, they don't recognize it, they should be asking questions. Visitor policy, they sign in, sign out policy. We have obviously video. We've tried to even upgrade that in all of our buildings, and that's something we try to do on an ongoing process. And some of our smart bonds money, and I know that was somebody brought that up, said, hey, this school got this extra money for this kind of technology, and it actually was money that they still had left over from the original smart bonds money that was approved back in, I don't know, 2014, something like that. So I looked at it, and that's what it was. We've expended our money, but we've used a lot of that for this type of stuff. It helped with our blue light system, and it helped revamp some older cameras that we have much better cameras with much better functionality. But we're still always looking to upgrade those and add as needed to areas. So, and then we have our special patrol officers that make their way around through all 3 buildings all day long. We've had a really wonderful relationship. Actually, through the years with all of our SPOs, we've had these 2, Vinny and Kyle, the last 3 years, I think. 2 definitely, but maybe 3. They've been it's nice with that consistency, and they're excellent. They mingle well with our kids, with our staff, who really feel like they're part of us. So that's good to know, and they get to know our students very well. Okay, threats of violence, applied or direct. We have certain staff that's trained in de-escalation techniques, other strategies to try to diffuse situations as much as possible. Certainly, if issues arise, building administration is notified of whatever this threat might be. As we said, you see something, say something. Our job is to assess the level of threat, and there's different things that we can go through depending on what that threat might be. And then we get into contact appropriate law enforcement as needed. And then with any situation, you monitor it, you adjust it as needed. You may deem something that's not a threat, but there might be something residual that you still have to deal with. And then, I know we'll get into it other slides. As needed, we'll get a response team, whether it's your emergency response team or a crisis response team together. Talk about the situation, talk about what are some of the factors, what are the things we want to look for, what students we want to keep an eye out for, depending on the situation. But also, as we'll get into in here, is it's a time to reflect on how we responded to things and how we might be able to do something different in the future. So, response to active violence, we usually assess that level of threat. If warranted, we'll isolate the immediate area or evacuate if we need to. Building principals are obviously informed. If the need to lock down is appropriate, we will certainly do that. Notify appropriate law enforcement as needed. And again, monitor the situation and adjust as needed to that. Okay, emergency response protocols. So in our buildings, there's obviously there's a chain of command. You identify who are the decision makers. You know, each building has a plan on how to safeguard staff and students. Procedures to provide transportation. So certainly we have, you know, our staff is not always readily available to drive buses, but you know, we have a protocol in place that we will call them and get them to come in as soon as possible, but we'll also use all available staff that can drive a bus in the needs of evacuation. You know, it would be easier if it was just a building, but if it's a district-wide evacuation, certainly we would systematically go through to make sure we can get everybody to our evacuation site. And then, you know, procedures to notify parents, notify media as needed, and then debriefing procedures. Recovery. This is kind of what I talked about a little bit earlier. After the incident, it could be a building emergency response team, or it could be a crisis team. We debrief the emergency event. We have kind of a whole template that we follow when we have an event. So something's brought to our attention. We enact whether it's a district-wide crisis team or a building-level crisis team. It depends on where we need to go with it, and it might be both. So we get a lot of heads in the room together and talk through what do we know, what is factual that we can share. So we want to make sure we get a message out to staff, who then can also, as needed and as appropriate, share that message with students, so everybody's working with the same information. Now, we might hear, oh, we heard this. This is what we know now is basically our response, and we share that. And where we can, we get in touch with the families, find out what we can share, what they don't mind us sharing, and you know, we'll stay within those parameters. And then we certainly monitor that situation, provide counseling, and let people know where they can get support as needed. And then the key with anything is you reflect on how you executed that plan when you had to execute it, and make changes. You know, some of those might be changes, written changes in procedures as you move forward. So I think that's a real key, and we went through a few of those incidents this year, and it's very helpful. It's good because you have a lot of people in the room with a lot of different knowledge and different levels of expertise, and no one person or two people should have to be expected to know everything, but together we have a pretty good team. Continuity of operations. This came about when COVID hit, and basically all of this talks about how would you respond to a pandemic as it comes to you know, prevention and mitigation of exposure, recognizing, you know, staffing levels, who are essential staff, who are, you know, hopefully we don't have to get into that situation again where and everybody left and just very basic, very few staff were still here. You know, contingencies for staff to telecommunicate as needed. You know, this is a part of the plan too, and there's the next slide I will talk in a little more depth, but what's the internet connectivity for all of our students and staff? What's the mobile device availability to students and staff? And then, you know, maintaining our incident command structure and mobilize them as needed, depending on the level of the crisis here. And making sure we're using our means of communication. Certainly during the pandemic, email was used a lot. Parent Square was used a lot. Information was posted to the website. You know, it might have been through emails in Parent Square saying, go to the website. You know, those kind of things. Obtaining and maintaining supplies of personal protective equipment. You know, we're expected to keep some levels of supplies, you know, with those as part of this plan. So basically, it's taken what were some of the things we did during the pandemic and putting it on paper in this plan. So that was something a couple of years ago that became mandatory for this plan. And then new for the 23-24 school year is the remote instruction. And the state is requiring us to have plans to ensure availability of devices and internet access each year. We do a survey of our students to ascertain their internet connectivity and their device availability. We do have the ability to provide something, a device for every student. In the middle and high school, I think it's readily available for them to take home. The elementary school is we have to work on. They're not taking it home and bringing it back or have that ability, but we can provide them. So that may be, hey, here's going to be, we set up pickup times and locations to accommodate getting that stuff. So we are in a position where we can accommodate that. But in this plan, we have to, describe how we do that and find out that availability, so that's an annual survey. And that's also part of our intake of new students. That is one of the parts of the questionnaires that ask them about their availability of devices and certainly internet connectivity. Provisions for special education and students that receive related services. Expectations for time spent in different remote modalities. So talk about some of the remote may be synchronous, where they're actively engaged with the teacher. Some might be asynchronous. For example, you go through information on Google Classroom, information is shared, you expect to do some work and then checking with the progress. And then, as I said, in the bottom, an annual assessment of student access to this stuff. This right now, the state has not, they said this is a requirement. Before they had a template for this slide, before they had a template. Talking with our safety office at BOCES, there is a webinar coming up here in June that they expect that they will have better direction. So, I mean, we're expected to have this in. They don't have a specific template to follow. These are kind of the highlights of what we got in a memo of what they want. We have some of this that's already in our back to reopening plans for COVID, but certainly we have to go into a little bit more greater detail on what that was, but certainly we can intertwine some of that. We did have a school district down in the Albany area, and I think through their BOCES kind of developed a template that was shared with us. So this is being drafted as we speak right now, and we will add to our draft as we get this information in, but that will be, if it's not completed, by the time we necessarily approve it, we know it's going to have to get in there. And this plan is something is a fluid document that can be adjusted throughout the year, and certainly will bring you up to speed in the following year's presentation of this. But that is a quick overview of our district safety plan. Is there any questions?
Right, just a brief one. If a natural disaster or some type of catastrophe were to happen, how many days before a remote plan would take effect?
So,
or is that?
I will tell you, my approach has been once kind of we've gotten past the COVID part, because we do have the option now. They put in that caveat that you can use remote instruction as opposed to it in place of in lieu of an emergency plan. My philosophy has been right now, unless something catastrophic happens, we're going to treat our snow days. I'm going to try to take the same approach that I've always had on the snow days, which isn't a perfect science, but those are typically our emergency days. And, delay if that's appropriate, then get them in, because we do feel getting them in here in any capacity is better than to do the remote capacity. So I follow kind of our same pre-COVID line of thinking and get them in here, but know that I have this in the event we have a winter season or a flooding season that just all of a sudden we've gone through our 5 emergency days. We do have this to say, to prevent us from having to maybe cut into vacations. But I think that's also takes some prudence to say, you know what, we're getting maybe out of the woods and we have exceeded our days, maybe we do take back a day as opposed to going to remote instruction. That is an option that we have. So I think it's kind of philosophical. If you had something that totally exceeded that, the expectation is that you would go to this. I think it was some forward thinking in the state to say that that's an option. And some people, even during COVID, are like, hey, we're going to go there. We're not going to use a snow day. We're going to use, remote instruction day. I think sometimes we forgot it. I'll tell you, I was guilty. We did that once, but we were still kind of in the realm of that instruction. But just the normalcy of having a snow day, it didn't resonate with me when we had a particular day. We were kind of pretty much in the remote for the most part. We were in a hybrid, but we called it a remote day, where maybe it would have been a nice thing for everybody just to take a breath and celebrate our standard snow day, some normalcy. But so just some takeaways you certainly learned with some of that. But that is the option that you have. In some school districts who were approaching, maybe we still had the back end of winter to get to, and they were approaching their allotment of days that said there will be, closed for attendance, but we will do remote instruction. Some did that to kind of protect them and then maybe use their last day deeper into the winter season and hope they don't have to use any more between now and the end of the year. to question.
I was wondering.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Charlie.
Next, we'll move on to public to be heard. We didn't receive any requests for this evening. Okay. Next, we'll move on then to Board of Education subcommittee reports.
Okay, just no committee reports as of yet. I know this Thursday we're going to have another mascot committee meeting. Try to continue to work on that. So I have updated everything that I've received from people. I've updated our Google document that has different emblems or potential logos on there. So I hope to really kind of dive into those discussions to see if we can narrow some of that down, or if others bring some other suggestions in. And my plan for right now will be to get the resolution language to adopt red box as 2 words. We can't do it as one, but 2 words to formally adopt the red box as communicating quite valid. So I would plan to, Marie, if you can just make a note to make sure we definitely get that on the next agenda. Move forward with that, and then continue our discussions with the mascot.
Just wanted to comment, it was nice that the students were here at the last board meeting and their input and how we made them feel like they had a voice in the process. That was great feedback.
And I know, Mike and Lynn, I think, can attest to their opinions have been very valued,
Yes.
and they are very, very open about sharing. I mean, and even the younger ones, in the elementary. So it's so far that's been a rewarding experience, and they want that ownership, and I think that's nice. It's really nice.
Okay, next then we'll move on to superintendent's report.
Just a reminder, graduation in the gym is in the gym on the 23rd, due to the field being right now turfless, and will be replaned, and it'll be a construction site, we believe. So we'll be doing it in the gym on June 23rd at 7 o'clock. And please, if the board plans on being there, let us know. If you have someone graduating, actually you're going to want to sit with your family, but otherwise we welcome you to join us to sit with the other dignitaries, the graduates, and certainly us up at the teaching staff and non-instructional staff that join us. Please feel free to come up there. So just let us know so we can set up accordingly for you. Okay? You can simply email myself or Marie, and we'll comment on that. That's it.
Old business, nothing under old business. New business, I'll read 8.1 to 8.8 as a consent agenda. If anyone has any questions or would like anything pulled for further discussion, please let me know. 8.1 is appointment of substitute teacher. 8.2, holiday schedule for 12-month employees. 8.3, rental of facilities, BOCEs. 8.4, approval of agreement with Developmental Therapy Associates. 8.5, summer sabbatical approval. 8.6, minutes of the May 9th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. 8.7, treasurer's reports of balances, April 30th, 2023. And 8.8, committee on special education and committee on preschool special education recommendations. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or would like anything pulled for further discussion?
I have one question. It's just a question. Maybe I'm wrong, but I couldn't find the May 9th minutes. That's because you were out. So how do I approve something that's not there? Am I right?
Good question. We can postpone.
I usually glance at it.
We can postpone it.
They weren't
If
on the
you-
internet?
Not when I look. It may have come up later, but I looked for them, and
So,
I didn't
let's-
see them, so I
So
don't think I
let's
could-
pull it. My recommendation is pull the motion. and-
Unless they want up later.
No,
Unless they
that's fine, we can do a vote on it for the next meeting.
We'll do both minutes as next.
I just wanted
Nope,
to.
I appreciate it, yep. So let's pull
$8.3.
the motion.
Any other
No, put
questions?
it on the next one.
Any other questions or comments? Then I'll need a motion to
So,
Tony, I'll need a second, please. Mike? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we'll move on to item 9, a resolution determining the appeal of a student disciplinary matter. Do we have any questions, comments, or discussion on item 9 before we vote?
I think I'll abstain from that just because I wasn't here
Yes.
for the meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then, I guess before, so we have to choose one, I guess, before you make a motion, you want to know what you're making a motion for. So item 1 is determination finding the student guilty of offense. The charge is upheld, I believe was the response. And then the penalty imposed by the superintendent is reversed, I believe was the response that we had. So upheld for the determination, reversed for the consequence. So we'll need a motion. Tony?
was it actually reversed or just?
So it is reversed, yes, but it's modified, so it's yeah. Yeah.
I'd like
That's
to revise because
Okay.
we didn't, if you reverse something, you said no.
Right.
We went with the recommendation, but made us like
We went from the language to the lawyer, but I feel it's fine to say revised is a better word. Yep. We'll note that.
I appreciated the debate, the conversation, I really did.
Very good.
Even though the slave people were kind of focused and
But
engaging.
what is important, so good. So that's what we have, upheld and revised, so now we just need a motion.
Okay, so I'll need a motion then to approve item 9. So Lynn, I'll need a second, please. Judy? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And Patty was one abstention. Next, we'll move on to miscellaneous topics. Got some time to kill everybody, so.
Anybody want updates on the CSC?
So, well, maybe if we get through the rest of the meeting.
There's no action taken on the senior class trip because there's no date, right? They're not,
That was already approved back in the fall.
right, but they're not going. Where are they going?
We have our revised trip, version 3, the first Friday in June.
June 7th.
Those deposits are due this Friday, so it's to be determined whether or not we will be going on that trip. We're still collecting permission slips.
Okay.
We need a minimum of 30, so we'll have a final report on that at the next board meeting.
And the only reason I asked that question is, 2 weeks ago or last week, we didn't know the status of it.
We're in the same place that we were 2 weeks ago.
So I thank you, Michelle.
I'd just like to say, 8th grade moving up ceremony is Wednesday, June 21st. You're all more than welcome to attend.
It's
I'll
Wednesday,
try
Mr.
Wednesday, June 21st, 7 o'clock, high school auditorium.
So just in case anybody wants to know, the 2 hottest days of the year will be that moving up ceremony, and now, thank you very much, will be the high school.
It was hotter when it used to be in the gym.
Yes.
That's why we do ours at 9:30.
Yeah.
Well, get the air right.
Yes, sir. You start.
Yes.
All right, then.
Just one thing, I just want to miscellaneous, is, I know we're still streaming these meetings, and I know last meeting, we had everything up and running, we had it on the screen, it looks like it was ready to go, we hit the go button, nothing happened, and it didn't record. So typically what happens is people can view this at this time, but if they don't, they have the ability to go see the recording of that. They didn't get either in that last meeting, so we do apologize for that. And then, yeah, we believe this meeting, I'll go to my computer.
Did you receive any inquiry?
I did not. And we get maybe 4 to 8 people. And I usually try to watch it, but my battery went today, so that we had 4 on. When I went up there to speak, when I come back, it was off. So, but yes, again, and I know every year I bring it to your attention, and I know there will be a new person saying to stop, maybe just worthy of discussion and say, is that what do we want to continue with that? I do believe there are views, people go in, and look at it after the fact, but as far as like tonight, asked like, what, 4, go to 7, go to 5, maybe some people come back on. I know some staff actually go on, you know, are looking at that, but certainly a point of discussion if you wanted to.
If you yelled smash that like button at the beginning, I bet you people would totally.
Yes. So, but again, just food for thought. I know we usually discuss it once a year, beginning of the year, but that's something with the new superintendent you want to have a further discussion with, and how that goes. And certainly, food for thought. But just wanted to bring light. Charlie did ask if I bring some light to the little mix-up of last week. I'm not sure what happened, but at least this week it worked for us. So we're trying.
I guess I was mostly disappointed because it was the budget presentation, that it wasn't there. Maybe that'd be something, though it was a very poor presentation on my part, but in any case, you know, in those situations, if it doesn't record, maybe we could do something where we could have that available separately as at least the budget presentation. But as Ron said, in the future, whatever the wish of the board is, we'll keep doing it. We'll try to perfect it a little more. We did a number of tests this week to make sure it worked this evening, and I think
Right now, YouTube seems to be the way to do it. I know when we were doing it during COVID, we were using the services of Madison and other BOEs. They were kind enough to have people on standby and set it up in a different way, and then record everything for us, send us the recording so we had to post. But then when that went away, the only option we had is to go through YouTube in this way. We're still ironing out some of the kinks with that. But if there's a more efficient way, and that's the direction the board wants to go, then maybe explore those options. This is cost effective right now.
Do we have a high school student who's willing to come and share their expertise
I-
with us?
Again,
No
those
offense,
could be
Charlie,
the,
but
well,
kids know their way.
he's probably okay to say,
an elementary kid.
he's probably okay to say, yeah, come on in and take it over.
UPK would be crushed.
That's all.
That's maybe there's a high school student willing to kind of help out.
But nonetheless, that's, we try to make the most of it and help with transparency, I suppose. And but yeah, always something I think open for discussion. See where you want to go. So I have nothing for executive session this time. So we can just adjourn, and then those want to stick around for the board, the election and budget results. That will be 8 o'clock. The polls close, and we should have within hopefully 5 to 10 minutes after that results of this year's election and budget vote. So, and then we will act on adopting those results at the next meeting. Okay?
Before we adjourn, can I make 2 comments?
Oh, yeah, go
Please.
ahead.
I'd like to welcome Marie back. Pleasure seeing you again. You were missed, although we got a good deputy clerk.
Yeah.
Who apparently didn't make sure you had the minutes.
When I looked for them, they weren't there. They may have been posted out.
Well,
And then-
it should be posted after. When you look, they should have been there. So.
Second of all, last Thursday, May 11th, School Board Institute, which is comprised of school board members from Oneida, Burkebird, Madison County, and 3 counties, honored Ron Wheelock as one of 4 individuals for his distinguished service. Very, very well attended, and we had great representation from the district here. And it was an honor to see Ron honored for all he's done for Sauquoit Valley. And Ryan Miller presented him with a proclamation as well. And we were very well represented, very proud of you, Ron.
Thank you very much. I appreciated it. And even though the recognition is not what I sought, that recognition got both my boys home, so I was also got to see my military person as well.
I love
I was
that.
surprised, didn't know it was coming. I was
We didn't either.
blown away.
We didn't.
So that was really moving. So that made the requisite